Even a poor tailor is entitled to some habit. Frigates! Okay, anyway, so it's been a while since I've done one of these. It's been a really long time since I've posted one of these videos. There's a video that hasn't been posted that was made. There's a few of those, actually. I briefly had a beard in the intervening time, but if you just look at my life through these YouTube videos, you would never know. Usually when I do these, we're joined in the background by some music. Today that is not going to be the case. There just will be some traffic and construction noise, maybe, if that powers through my general talking dim. However, there is no music today because, and this is unfortunately true, my phone has no battery. It went from 15% to dead in the matter of 15 seconds or so while I was on the phone call with Ayush. This has been an ongoing issue for my phone, the rapid battery drop-off, issues with charging, not come and go, some other issues with, such as me not being able to turn off the child safety settings, because that always crashes the phone when I go into that app, the digital well-being one. So in light of all these problems, I have finally committed myself to purchasing a new mobile telephone, and I believe that my choice is going to be the Samsung Galaxy Z4 Fold. I said those last two words out of order. It should be Fold 4. And I also included the Z, despite some people rumoring or suggesting that Samsung should drop the Z in light of that letter being used by the Russian military in Ukraine. However, that is preposterous, as it's one of 26 letters. We don't have that many to choose from. How have I been lately? That's the question we're all asking. Well, when you take 20 minutes out of your day to sit down and talk to yourself in a video and pretend that someone else is listening to it, how great can you ever be doing? I would argue pretty darn great, actually. I just got off the phone with Ayush. That was a good time. I was texting my dad earlier. He and I are talking about starting our own podcast, where I will have to talk much slower and in a more conversational, academic tone than I do here. That's why this is the ramble channels, where I often run out of voice because I'm talking so much and trying to avoid taking breaths. But on that channel, it will be a more nuanced dive into issues with ironic, sardonic tone, never really taking anything serious, but perhaps literally. That's one of my favorite little bits of wordplay, and making fun of what they said about Donald Trump in the 2016 election for the uninformed. And it's a lot like the Bible as well, as the comparison was first made. So what have I been doing this summer? Well, I'm glad you asked. I've been working in a trash landfill filled with trash people, which is the title of my documentary about my work for this summer. I'm going to interview them. There's a lot of interesting perspectives. One of the people I work with is a Ghanaian. He finished his math students here. He's working here, and the 3 years they're allowed to work on a student visa. I didn't know that's how it worked until talking about him. It was before I actually met him, but the office conversation about his start and hire. His perspective on climate change is very nuanced. The first is the scientific denial part, where he says the climate is always changing. There's nothing necessarily particularly fast about what's going on right now. Have the humans thrown off the CO2 balance of the world? Yes, climate is changing, but it's always changing, so the most important thing is resiliency. And yes, we should do reforestation and plant more trees to try to get this natural cycle back in order, but to demonize carbon and to demonize the use of fossil fuels is preposterous, and it's hypocritical for these countries to have gained so much wealth with telling Ghana not to do this. They don't have enough energy as now. And when you look at what a country like Germany has done by making it, instead of a practical scientific effort like they're known for, but instead politicizing the issue, rushing through it, and not taking a wait-and-see approach that he says Ghana will take, they've really shot themselves in the foot. He lost a lot of respect for the environmental movement when they demonized nuclear energy as well as the one perfectly viable, existing, safe alternative to fossil fuels and to carbon release and production that produces energy. And he finds Germany firing up their coal power plants while still continuing with the decommissioning of their nuclear plants to be preposterous, hypocritical, and it really turns away a lot of people in his country from ever possibly supporting the green movement. He prioritizes resiliency to climate changes because even though this one is caused by human, we all know that the natural powers of the earth, the natural freaks of the weather, will always make it more important to be more resilient, regardless of whatever impacts we can change or not change by reducing our consumption of fossil fuel as we gradually move towards nuclear, renewables, and other less polluting, healthier alternatives for the planet and ourselves. Very interesting perspective. I just gave you a SparkNotes version of it, but there's nothing like actually talking to a person, getting their view live on camera, recorded to you, and that's what dinner table contemporary dining that's what contemporary dining, no issue off limits at the table, will really dive into. It might also be called toothless news that doesn't bite. What else has been going on in me? Whew, that's a lot. I haven't been getting enough food or enough sleep. There's been a lot of caffeine coursing through my veins. That's been interesting. I think I look really good right now. These couple like little shaving marks notwithstanding, I think I'm kind of hot. Not that I pay that much attention to how I look or anything. Right here, I have Americock McRiley. It's a name that screams something, which I also think is a fitting description of America as I talk with my Ghanaian friend about word order once again. Uh, Americans like to take things to the extreme, and we like to talk about things loudly. We like to proclaim. Professional claimants, one might say, litigatory as well as argumentative. Um, that was really clever. That was good job, Donovan. And the message isn't clear, but you know it when you pick it. It's out there. You just gotta roll with it. Take what you will. We talked about how he really had this skewed view of America consuming our production, and he really focused on the lives of people in California and New York, in which I informed him that that view is how they see the country too. And I taught him about the term flyover country. He found that quite funny. When talking to my dad the other day, he was talking about me, making fun of me for bringing my computer to watch the poetry of the sunset. And while I said, yes, it is true that watching the sunset has a certain poetical element, and is certainly poetic, the commentary of missing it to send a work email is yet more so. I also thought that was pretty good. Came to me on the spot. No one will believe it ever, but I do just think things and say them sometimes with some people. My dad being the prime example, all my friends being also prime examples. There's more prime numbers than none in this version of the math world, and it's really interesting when you think about it that way. As my dad once said, it's not that I'm hypocritical, my beliefs and opinions stay the same, it's just my mood and accents change, but that's like the difference between climate and weather, you friggin' climate change denier. Anywho, I have some jokes I shouldn't put on the internet written down in my journal next to me. Um, I lost my wallet. That was scary. I found my wallet. I've been very happy about that since then. Um, my dad met Dan Knotts when he lost his wallet, which is a cool thing to keep an eye on. That's Barney Fife, Mayberry PD, did some other stuff. I saw a movie collection from Walmart shortly after this conversation. It was like a week and a half later, so it's not that interesting because it's not right away, but still. So I don't know what songs I've recorded on here. I know which ones I definitely haven't. Who are you when you're alone? What do you do when no one's home? I'm a guy who sings in monotone. But who are you when you're alone? What stories do we tell ourselves? What lies preserve your mental health? I like to pretend I sing in tune. I like to pretend I hear you singing too. But who are you when you're alone? What do you do when no one's home? My mind is racing, so I'm pacing back and forth. My mind is racing, so I'm pacing back and forth. My mind is pacing, so I'm racing back and forth. We're dancing across the living room. The circles in my spirals in my head, tracing circles with my feet. Force a smile, try to stay upbeat. Need some fresh air, go out by the street. But you've really only got 4 inches in which to roam. So who are you when you're alone? What do you do when your mind is ringing like a telephone? But all the voices on the line are your own. Yeah, who are you when you're alone? What do you do when no one's home? Who are you when you're alone? What do you do when no one's home? It's a little ditty. I think I might have missed a verse, to be honest. I feel like there might have been something before. My mind is racing and I'm pacing back and forth. I can't think of anything. I don't know. I really don't know at this point. Am I doing okay? Am I happy? Yeah, I mean, I get upset at times. Very angry. Very unmotivated. That happens, but I power through. I get stuff done. I make myself laugh. I make other people laugh. I'm doing all right. Like, I'm ingesting food. I get some sleep. Why am I so upset at life sometimes? I don't know. But it's just a journey. And wherever you may go, I want you to know I hope to see you at the end. But for now, fond farewells, my friend. It's awkward because I did that in the middle of the video when there's a lot more left to go to get to the desired length for this. For my internship, let's talk about that for a little bit. It's actually kind of interesting. So I'm a landfill quality insurance technician, whatever you want to call it. And so right now we're breaking in the Jeff City landfill cell, and it's a really interesting design because it's surrounded by cells on two sides and on top of waste on the other side. And so there's a few different things that have geo in front of them, but there's composite, which is made up of textile, and in between, and a sandwich layer of net underneath it. And then there's GCO, which is geosynthetic clay liner, which is a bento mat, which is meant to swell when it meets water. And then there is a membrane, which is meant to form a barrier water can't get past. It's like a tarp, which is geomembrane. And when you have the geotextile, the idea of the geotextile and geonet is to form a layer that solids can't get through, but water can, and so it basically functions as a flat pipe. And you actually do have perforated and solid pipes at various points within the cell to collect water and gas, and you have a vacuum seal slurping things up into it, taking them out of the cell to a gas collection system where it is burned for energy in one, and then to a condensate leachate pond for the other. Or leachate eggs, actually, you have the gas pipe, condensate forms in the gas pipe, you have little holes in the gas pipe, and then you have a composite directly adjoining that pipe that hopefully will basically, the leachate will find its way out of, or condensate will find its way out of its pipe and into, to drift and mix with the leachate there. But condensate is actually phenotypically distinct. I don't know, it's a metaphorical use of phenotypical, sure, I think it makes sense to use there, but chemically distinct matter, content-wise distinct from leachate, though they do, in the end, both take the form of liquid in a landfill. And that can then be mixed and become one mixed heterogeneous fluid. So it's pretty interesting. The expansion will last 2.5 years, maybe, before the next cell needs to be constructed at Jeff City, which is just how these tend to go. They're not super long, but you keep building cells either horizontally or putting another layer on top of final cover for another cell and making it that way. It's kind of fascinating. Other types of projects I've been involved with, other than this was mostly soil, earthwork, and then this, geosynthetic, all that mess. That's what this project, my job on it, involved. Other stuff I've done so far for this internship includes a pipe project, where I did CQA from that, which is really just walking around watching them dig trenches and weld butt fusion piping throughout hooking them up to new gas lines, new vacuum sources. Hooking new wells up to old vacuum sources, primarily. And then I've also done HAP sampling, which is the heat assessment program, which is kind of figuring out why certain landfills get so hot, how can we predict it, how can we prevent it from degrading into hazardous substances if it gets hot enough. And then I've also just done normal gas sampling as well as normal groundwater sampling. So a lot of really interesting projects, a lot of different aspects considered. I briefly did some surfaces in AutoCAD. Didn't really learn much about how to do that, but I saw it done. Have some exposure to that, as well as various exposure to the various other aspects of their drawings to some degree, and to learning how to fold a 36 by 24 paper and getting more familiar with how printers work. I've also this summer gotten better at cooking. I learned how to do pasta. Better at cooking is a really weak statement here. Just like my noodles had a very weak flavor because I did boil them in the sauce. It was flavorful enough for me. Honestly, it could have been a little bit blander for my preference, but I'm not everyone. Everyone's not me. The world continues to exist outside of my field of view, and I need to keep that in mind. So do other people I know. Everyone needs to keep that in mind. But yeah, so That's really what I've been up to this summer. In terms of creative ventures this summer, there was that song. There's been some edits to another song that I do know was recorded in one of these, which was the "Wanna hear what you have to say, wanna know how you're doing today, yeah. I wanna hear how you're feeling that way, yeah. I wanna know what you have to say." There's another version of the end of that, which isn't recorded in here, and will of course fade from my mind from the version that was recorded in here. But there's just been some creative juices flowing in a circle around that. And I don't feel like singing the rest of it now or trying to really drive myself to remember it right at the moment. The core of it's there, I can create edits anytime. 60-40 ratio seems fair to you. I'll have a few tidbits to share too. Just want you to know that whatever you have to say, I'm ready to hear. So feel free to bring it my way, because I'm here. I'm here. I'm here to hear anything you have to say. Once you become too self-aware, it's a vicious circle, because you can never know whether you're doing something because you were aware that you were doing it before. You should never question your own motives. You just got to commit to something and start freaking talking. If you give yourself time to think, you'll screw it up. That's why the 1, 2, 3 rule is so important. However, like, what action am I supposed to think to have done in those 3 seconds? It's really not that helpful if you think about it, which I suppose is the problem I'm getting myself into. But right, so you're talking about, like, what do I do next? What do I want to say? Who knows what I want to say? What do I think of? Like, what? Like, no, I don't know. I'm a big fan, honestly. This last 2 minutes has been blah, 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 unintelligible. Unintelligent as well, most likely, and a couple of different meanings of that word as well. And now I'm making jokes that only make sense within my mind, to my mind right now. Never a good sign. I've been working a lot on D&D with Chris. I like brainstorming. I like coming up with ideas that have no responsibility for how they actually turn out in-game, and without needing to schedule and coordinate schedules with other people. It's really a fun part of D&D. The making of stuff is not always more fun than the playing in the game, but is a blast. The way to do that without any of the other corresponding responsibilities also impeding on my life is really nice. I'm excited about how the Cardinals season has been progressing here lately. Those deadline trades for pitchers, not exciting, not Soto, but we're looking strong. I love my man Lars Noot. Right now I'm really strongly thinking I'm going to go work at the state for a little bit and then go to law school and then become a law professor at some point in my life. And I'm committed to some combination of that path and to continuing to try to write songs and upload this random stuff and maybe start a podcast with my dad. And to keep this thing going with Ayush and to stay in touch with all my friends and so on and so forth. And I have a pretty aggressive schedule I need to set for myself. A lot of stuff I want to try to make done and to make sure I get done. But the end goal, as I said at the very beginning of these rambles, is I'm trying to move towards a life where I'm not just seeking to be comfortable, where I don't just accept a minimum, but where I push a little bit to actually be happy. But I don't think that's all about being the most productive or the most successful. That's not what the push for happiness about. It's still not at its core a monetary venture. It's still at its core about the relationships I form, and that doesn't need to be all my eggs in one basket. It's about a network of relationships. No individual relationship can form that. You can't make a network out of one connection, right? It's about a patchwork of people and a patchwork of experiences, and bring together as many different voices as you can to create the real world. Because that's all this is, and that's all what media is all trying to do, to get us to agree to some established baseline. And I hope this podcast can contribute to someone. There's some educational content in here. This doesn't have much commentary or advice on life, I guess, until this very part at the end. But it's about talking to as many people as you can. Someone already took the idea of a big thesis about talking to strangers, but I truly do believe it, because not only might you learn something, it's just more fun. It turns it from sitting past someone hoping someone doesn't talk to you to, if you're the one who talks to them. As Hank Green said, if the only people who talk to strangers are assholes, then people will think everyone's an asshole. You got to be different. You got to be nice. You got to say hi and hope it goes somewhere, and hope you learn something new, or hope you have a funny experience to talk about later, or hope you just get to smile or see someone else smile, or maybe make a new friend, or just pass a second, because that's all we're all doing, passing seconds together.